The June sun beat down mercilessly on Greenwood High School's football field, where rows of white folding chairs faced a makeshift stage draped in the school's blue and white colors. The 1965 graduation ceremony vibrated with a tension that had nothing to do with the oppressive Mississippi heat. Marcus Henderson sat in the second row of black students, his crisp white shirt pressed meticulously by his mother the night before, his graduation gown a stark contrast against his dark skin. Every muscle in his body was coiled tight, not from nervousness but from a lifetime of calculated resilience. Around him, his classmates whispered. Everyone knew what was coming. Marcus had been more than just a student. He was a symbol of hope. The boy who tutored younger kids in the black community after school. The student who organized peaceful study groups when the school library refused to allow black students to enter. The senior who had challenged the school's segregated curriculum by requesting advanced placement texts. His father, James Henderson, sat in the sparse area designated for black families, his work-worn hands clasped tightly, his Sunday-best suit a testament to the pride and sacrifice that had brought Marcus to this moment. Eleanor Henderson sat beside him, her church hat casting a shadow over eyes that had seen generations of struggle. Principal Robert Clayton adjusted his microphone, his pale fingers gripping the stand with a tension that suggested this graduation was more than just an academic ceremony. He represented a system desperately clinging to its final moments of unchallenged power. "When I call your name," Clayton announced, his southern drawl cutting through the humid air, "you will walk across this stage, receive your diploma, and proceed to the designated photo area." Marcus caught the eye of Miss Jenkins, his history teacher, the only white educator who had consistently supported his academic journey. She gave an almost imperceptible nod of encouragement. As names were called, Marcus observed the ritual. White students strode confidently across the stage, their families cheering. Black students were called with a perfunctory tone, their moments of achievement reduced to bureaucratic procedure. When the first block of names concluded, Marcus realized something was wrong. His name had been skipped. Deliberately. The message was clear. In Greenwood, Mississippi in 1965, some achievements were not meant to be celebrated. But Marcus Henderson was about to change that narrative, one diploma at a time. The silence following the omission of Marcus's name hung heavy over the football field. Black families exchanged knowing glances, another attempt to diminish their children's achievements. White families remained purposefully oblivious, caught up in their own celebrations. Miss Jenkins was the first to stand, her voice cutting through the background noise. "Excuse me, Principal Clayton. You missed Marcus Henderson." Principal Clayton's eyes flickered momentarily, a micro-expression of recognition and discomfort. "I'm certain all names have been called," he responded, his tone carefully controlled. Marcus remained seated, years of strategic nonviolence training keeping him calm. He had anticipated something like this. His civil rights group had discussed potential scenarios, prepared responses that would expose injustice without providing an excuse for retaliation. James Henderson rose from his seat, a mountain of a man whose decades of agricultural labor had etched dignity into every line of his face. "My son has maintained a 4.0 GPA, he called out, his voice carrying across the field. "He's been accepted to Tougaloo College. You will call his name." A ripple of tension spread through the audience. White parents shifted uncomfortably. Black families sat straighter, sensing a moment of potential confrontation. Miss Jenkins walked to the stage, her white skin providing a level of protection Marcus and his father could not risk. "Robert," she said quietly but firmly to the principal, "you know Marcus has the highest academic standing in the senior class. This isn't an oversight. This is deliberate." Behind the stage, Marcus could see the school superintendent whispering urgently with Clayton. Their body language suggested a hasty conference about how to handle the unfolding situation. Marcus's mind raced through the possible outcomes. He had prepared for this. The local chapter of the NAACP knew about his situation. Lawyers were ready if the school attempted to withhold his diploma. But he hoped it wouldn't come to that. He wanted to graduate with dignity, without turning his moment into a public spectacle. His mother, Eleanor, caught his eye and gave a subtle shake of her head. "Don't escalate," her look said. "Let them reveal themselves." The superintendent approached the microphone, clearly uncomfortable. "There seems to be a administrative issue with one student's records." Before he could continue, a commotion began at the back of the field. A group of local civil rights activists, some black, some white allies, had been filming the ceremony. Cameras were now pointed directly at the stage. Marcus realized this moment was bigger than his individual graduation. It was a test of the school's commitment to integration, of the community's willingness to acknowledge true achievement regardless of race. Miss Jenkins leaned close to Principal Clayton, her voice low but intense. "You have two choices," she said. "Call Marcus's name with the respect he's earned, or explain to the press and the Federal Education Board why a student with a perfect academic record is being deliberately excluded." The cameras continued rolling. The audience held its collective breath. Principal Clayton's hand trembled slightly as he reached for the list of graduates. Principal Clayton's hesitation lasted only seconds, but in that moment, the entire history of Mississippi's racial tensions seemed to crystallize. The sun beat down, casting long shadows across the football field, a symbolic dividing line between the old world and the emerging reality of civil rights. "Marcus Henderson," he finally announced, his voice lacking its earlier confidence. But Marcus didn't move immediately. Instead, he looked to his father, who gave a subtle nod. This was their moment, not just for Marcus, but for every black student who had been systematically marginalized, every family that had fought for education against impossible odds. As Marcus walked toward the stage, the black section of the audience began to rise. Soft applause started, growing into a thunderous recognition that was part celebration, part defiance. Miss Jenkins stood at the edge of the stage, her presence a silent statement of solidarity. The white sections of the audience remained mostly seated, some with uncomfortable expressions, others with barely concealed resentment. But Marcus noticed something different. Younger students, white and black, were watching with a curiosity that suggested the old barriers were beginning to crumble. When Marcus reached the stage, Principal Clayton extended his hand, a calculated gesture of public reconciliation. But as Marcus reached for the standard diploma, Clayton pulled out a second envelope. "This is for you," he said quietly, loud enough only for Marcus to hear. Not the standard diploma. The moment seemed to stretch. Marcus accepted both the standard diploma and the mysterious envelope, his training in nonviolent resistance keeping his expression neutral. But his heart raced. Something was different about this second envelope. It felt heavier, more significant. As he turned to face the audience, cameras continued rolling. Local journalists who had been tipped off about potential tension were capturing every moment. Marcus's civil rights group had strategically ensured media presence, knowing that documentation was a powerful tool for change. His father's eyes glistened with pride. Eleanor clutched a handkerchief, decades of hope and struggle embodied in this single moment of recognition. Miss Jenkins approached the microphone. "Marcus Henderson has not just graduated today," she announced, her voice carrying across the field. "He represents the future of education in Mississippi, a future where achievement is measured by merit, not by the color of one's skin." The mysterious envelope burned in Marcus's hand. Something about Clayton's manner suggested this was more than a simple piece of paper. As the ceremony concluded and students began to disperse, Marcus noticed the superintendent watching him intently. Local activists from the NAACP were gathering near the edge of the field, their cameras still recording. "Meet me behind the gymnasium in 10 minutes, the superintendent whispered as Marcus passed, so quietly that Marcus wasn't entirely sure he had heard correctly. Marcus's mother appeared at his side, linking her arm through his. "Whatever is happening," she said softly, "remember who you are. Remember what we fought for." The mysterious envelope seemed to pulse with unspoken potential. Marcus knew this graduation was about far more than a piece of paper. It was about breaking generations of systemic oppression, one moment of courage at a time. The area behind the gymnasium provided a buffer from the graduation celebration's noise, a narrow space bordered by chain-link fence and overgrown Mississippi weeds. Marcus approached cautiously, the mysterious envelope still tucked carefully inside his graduation gown. Superintendent William Harris stood alone, his pressed gray suit a stark contrast against the unkempt landscape. He looked older than Marcus remembered from school board meetings, the weight of changing times etched into the lines of his face. "You're probably wondering about this envelope," Harris said without preamble, gesturing toward Marcus's hand. Marcus remained silent, a strategy learned from years of civil rights training. Say nothing. Let them speak. Harris pulled out a cigarette, lit it with hands that trembled slightly. Your father doesn't know I'm here. Neither does Principal Clayton. What I'm about to tell you could destroy careers, maybe even put lives at risk. The superintendent's eyes scanned the surrounding area, checking for potential listeners. His paranoia felt genuine, not performative. That envelope contains something more than just a standard diploma, Harris continued. It's documentation that proves your academic achievements have been systematically suppressed for 3 years. Marcus felt his breath catch. Suppressed achievements. The words carried weight beyond simple academic records. Harris explained that Marcus's test scores and academic performance had been deliberately manipulated. Advanced placement recommendations were lost, scholarship applications redirected. Academic achievements systematically erased to prevent a black student from gaining too much visibility or opportunity. We have internal memos, Harris said, pulling additional papers from his jacket. Signed documents showing how the school board worked to limit your advancement. Your perfect GPA wasn't just excellence. It was an act of resistance against a system designed to hold you back. The documents revealed a chilling bureaucratic conspiracy. Detailed records showed how school administrators had worked to ensure black students remained marginalized, with Marcus identified as a particular threat due to his exceptional academic performance and community leadership. Why are you telling me this? Marcus finally asked, breaking his strategic silence. Harris's response was unexpected. Because the movement needs documentation. Because truth matters more than personal comfort. And because you represent something this system fears, a black student who cannot be contained, who refuses to be limited. He handed Marcus a thick manila folder. These are copies. The originals are already with the NAACP legal team and federal education investigators. What happens next is bigger than your individual story. Marcus understood immediately. This wasn't just about his personal achievement. This was evidence that could challenge systematic educational discrimination across multiple school districts. Your graduation today, Harris said, isn't just a personal milestone. It's a potential legal weapon against institutional racism. As if on cue, a car door slammed in the distance. Harris stiffened. Someone's coming. Remember, you didn't hear any of this from me. Before Marcus could respond, the superintendent was gone, melting into the landscape like a shadow. Marcus stood alone, the envelope and folder feeling suddenly heavy with historical significance. His graduation had transformed from a personal celebration to something far more profound, a potential turning point in the ongoing battle for educational equality. The family gathering after graduation felt like walking through a dream. Marcus's small shotgun house in the black neighborhood of Greenwood buzzed with relatives, neighbors, and community leaders, each offering congratulations that carried the weight of generations of struggle. "My boy," his father James said, pulling Marcus into a tight embrace. "You've done something no Henderson has ever done before." Eleanor moved around the room, serving her famous peach cobbler, her eyes never leaving her son. She had worked as a domestic worker for white families her entire life, cleaning their homes, raising their children, all while dreaming of this moment for her own child. Marcus found a quiet moment on the small front porch, the mysterious envelope from the superintendent still tucked safely inside his jacket. Miss Jenkins approached, sitting beside him with a quiet understanding that transcended the typical student-teacher relationship. "You realize this is bigger than just your diploma," she said softly. Marcus nodded. "The documents Harris gave me, they're evidence of systematic discrimination, but revealing them could be dangerous." Miss Jenkins had been more than just a teacher. A white woman from a prominent local family, she had secretly supported the civil rights movement, providing resources and protection when possible. "The NAACP lawyers have been waiting for exactly this kind of documented proof," she explained. Inside, Marcus's uncle Robert, a veteran who had fought in World War II and returned to face continued discrimination at home, was holding court. "They tried to stop you," he told the gathered crowd, "but Marcus found a way through, just like we've always done." The community's pride was palpable, but Marcus recognized the underlying tension. This wasn't just a personal victory. It was a calculated blow against a system designed to maintain racial inequality. As evening approached, A car pulled up, unexpected and out of place in the predominantly black neighborhood. Marcus tensed, recognizing the vehicle as belonging to the school administration. Principal Clayton emerged, looking uncomfortable and out of place. The crowd on the porch went silent. "Mr. Henderson," Clayton called, "may I speak with you privately?" James Henderson stepped forward, a protective stance that spoke volumes about the history of interactions between black families and white authority figures. "Anything you need to say, you can say in front of my family." Clayton produced an official-looking envelope. "There are some additional details about Marcus's academic record that require clarification." Miss Jenkins, still on the porch, straightened. Her presence was both a protection and a warning. Any attempt to intimidate Marcus would be witnessed. "The Federal Education Office will be conducting a full investigation into the school's record-keeping practices," Clayton said, his voice carefully controlled. "Marcus's file requires some additional processing." The coded language was clear to everyone present. This was an attempt to control the narrative, to get ahead of the potential legal and public relations disaster brewing. Marcus's Uncle Robert laughed, a sharp, knowing sound that cut through Clayton's professional veneer. "Seems like someone's worried about what might come to light." As Clayton retreated, Marcus realized the envelope from the superintendent and the one Clayton just delivered represented two sides of the same story. A battle for truth that extended far beyond his individual graduation. His mother approached, touching his shoulder. "Whatever comes next," Eleanor said quietly, "we face it together." The night was just beginning, and Marcus understood that his graduation was about to become something much larger than a personal achievement. 3 days after graduation, Marcus's life transformed into a carefully orchestrated dance of potential danger and profound possibility. The documents from Superintendent Harris sat in a locked box in his father's bedroom, a family secret that could potentially reshape the landscape of educational equality in Mississippi. Early morning brought an unexpected visitor. A sleek black car pulled up, different from the school administration's vehicles. A woman in a crisp navy suit emerged, Diane Robinson, a lawyer from the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. "Marcus Henderson," she called from the gate. "I need to speak with you and your family." James Henderson opened the door, his farmer's instincts immediately alert. Eleanor prepared fresh coffee, a ritual of hospitality that masked the family's underlying tension. "The documents you received are more significant than you realize," Diane explained, spreading several typed pages on the kitchen table. "What we have here is evidence of systematic educational discrimination that goes beyond Greenwood High School. This could become a landmark case." The legal strategy was complex. The documents Marcus received weren't just about his individual experience. They revealed a coordinated effort to suppress black student achievements across multiple school districts in Mississippi. "We're looking at a potential class action lawsuit," Diane continued. "But that means Marcus becomes more than just a student. He becomes a potential target." The implications hung heavy in the kitchen. Becoming a legal plaintiff meant risking everything: future opportunities, personal safety, the delicate progress of civil rights movements. A phone call interrupted their discussion. Miss Jenkins, her voice urgent. "Marcus, you need to come to the school immediately. Something's happened to the original documents." The timing felt too convenient, too calculated. When they arrived at the school, chaos reigned. The administrative offices had been mysteriously broken into overnight. Filing cabinets stood open, papers scattered, but only specific documents related to black student records were missing. Principal Clayton looked pale, speaking with local police. "Someone deliberately targeted these specific files," he muttered, more to himself than to the officers. Marcus noticed something else. A janitor, an older black man who had worked at the school for decades, watched the scene with an unreadable expression. When their eyes met, he gave the slightest of nods. Back home, Marcus's Uncle Robert, a veteran with connections throughout the local black community, arrived with additional information. "Word is spreading," he told the family. "What happened at your graduation wasn't just about one student. It's about challenging the entire system." That evening, a package arrived. No return address. Inside, more documents. Copies of records that seemed to have disappeared from the school's files. Someone was helping them build their case. The phone rang. A voice Marcus didn't recognize. "Be careful," the caller said simply. Not everyone wants this truth to come out. Miss Jenkins called later that evening. The NAACP is mobilizing, she explained. Your graduation has become something much larger than anyone anticipated. Marcus understood now that his personal journey had become a potential turning point in the civil rights movement. The diploma was more than a piece of paper. It was a weapon of truth, a challenge to a system built on suppression and fear. As night fell over Greenwood, Marcus realized his fight was just beginning. The next morning, tensions erupted in ways no one anticipated. A burning cross appeared on the Henderson family's front lawn, a terrifying message from those threatened by Marcus's potential legal action. James Henderson grabbed his hunting rifle, but Eleanor stopped him. "Violence is what they want," she said quietly. "We'll fight with evidence, not weapons." The community rallied quickly. Neighbors formed a protective circle around the Henderson home, a human barrier against potential threats. Local civil rights leaders began organizing, recognizing that Marcus's case could become a pivotal moment in the ongoing struggle for educational equality. At the local church, Reverend Thompson called an emergency meeting. "They're trying to intimidate us," he told the gathered community. "But Marcus's story is our story. Every black student who's been held back, every child told they're not good enough, they're all standing with him now." Marcus met with Diane Robinson and Miss Jenkins to strategize. The NAACP legal team had begun tracing the paper trail of discrimination, connecting the dots between school administrators, local government, and systemic racist policies. "The documents you received are just the tip of the iceberg," Diane explained, spreading out a complex web of interconnected files. "We're seeing a coordinated effort to suppress black academic achievement across multiple school districts." A surprising ally emerged, Superintendent Harris. He began providing additional anonymous information, risking his own career to support the investigation. "Some of us in the system have been waiting for a moment to break this wide open," he told Marcus privately. The local newspaper, traditionally supportive of segregationist policies, began receiving pressure from national media outlets. Journalists from Chicago, New York, and Washington started arriving in Greenwood, sensing a potentially explosive story. Marcus's college acceptance to Tougaloo, already a point of pride, became a strategic concern. Would pursuing legal action jeopardize his educational future? "They're trying to make you choose," Miss Jenkins advised, "between your personal opportunity and collective justice." Uncle Robert, drawing from his experiences in the military and civil rights movement, provided crucial guidance. "They want you isolated," he told Marcus. "Your strength is in community, in showing that this isn't just about one student. It's about a system that needs to change." Late one night, an unmarked envelope arrived. Inside, more documents, this time showing how standardized testing had been manipulated to limit black students' opportunities. Handwritten notes revealed discussions about controlling black academic achievement. The psychological warfare intensified. Anonymous phone calls, subtle threats, attempts to intimidate Marcus's family and supporters. But each attempt to silence them only made the community stronger. Miss Jenkins discovered additional evidence of document tampering, connecting Marcus's case to broader patterns of educational discrimination. "This goes beyond Greenwood," she told the NAACP legal team. "This could be a federal case." Marcus found himself at the center of a growing movement. His graduation, once a personal milestone, had become a potential turning point in the civil rights struggle. "They thought they could skip my name," Marcus told his family one evening. "But now they can't ignore me. They can't ignore us." The burning cross on their lawn remained, a symbol of hatred, but also a testament to their refusal to be intimidated. Each day, more supporters gathered. Each day, the truth became harder to suppress. Marcus's fight was no longer just about a diploma. It was about justice. The escalation came unexpectedly on a humid morning. A convoy of federal investigators arrived in Greenwood, their black sedans creating a stark contrast against the small town's dusty streets. Marcus watched from his front porch as they met with local NAACP representatives, Miss Jenkins and Diane Robinson. Something had changed. The documents Marcus had received were now part of a much larger investigation. "We've identified a systematic pattern of educational sabotage," one investigator told the gathered group, speaking loud enough for Marcus to overhear. "This isn't just about one school district. We're looking at a coordinated effort across multiple southern states. Uncle Robert received a mysterious phone call that morning. When he hung up, his expression was a mixture of concern and determination. "They're getting nervous," he told Marcus's family. "Powerful people are starting to feel the pressure." A package arrived for Marcus, unmarked, but clearly containing official documents. Inside, he found evidence connecting school administrators to local political structures, revealing a complex network designed to maintain racial segregation through educational suppression. The local sheriff began making subtle appearances around the Henderson property. Not threatening exactly, but definitely observing. Marcus noticed the same car parked down the street multiple times, always with someone watching. Miss Jenkins revealed additional information during a hushed meeting. "There are people within the system who want this to come out," she explained. "Educators and administrators who've been waiting for a moment to challenge the status quo." Superintendent Harris contacted Marcus directly, now fully committed to exposing the truth. "There are records that go back decades," he said during a clandestine meeting. "Documentation of how the educational system was deliberately designed to limit black students' opportunities." The national media began to take serious interest. Journalists from major networks arrived in Greenwood, sensing a potentially groundbreaking story about systemic racism in education. "You've become more than just a student," Diane Robinson told Marcus. "You're now a potential catalyst for systemic change." Threats intensified. Another burning cross appeared, this time closer to the house. Anonymous phone calls became more frequent, but the community's response was equally powerful. Neighbors stood guard. Local civil rights groups provided protection. The church became a center of strategic planning. Marcus discovered something unexpected in the documents, evidence that some white educators had been secretly trying to challenge the system for years, risking their own careers in the process. Miss Jenkins was just one of many who had been working behind the scenes. A breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A retired school administrator from another county contacted the NAACP, offering additional documentation that would further expose the systematic discrimination. "They're trying to control the narrative," Uncle Robert explained. "But the truth has its own momentum now." The federal investigation began interviewing current and former school administrators. Marcus learned that his graduation moment, being skipped and then recognized, had become a symbolic turning point in the broader civil rights movement. "This is bigger than me," Marcus told his family one evening. "This is about every student who's been told they don't matter." The tension was palpable. Something was coming, a moment of reckoning that would challenge the entire educational system's racist foundations. Marcus knew the real battle was just beginning. The national spotlight transformed Greenwood overnight. Journalists, civil rights activists, and federal investigators created a steady stream of visitors to the small Mississippi town. The Henderson home became an unexpected center of strategic planning, with Marcus at its heart. A breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Elizabeth Morganfield, a prominent white sociologist from Yale University, arrived to document the case. Her research would provide critical academic context to Marcus's experience. "What happened to you is not an isolated incident," she told Marcus during an extensive interview. "It's a systemic approach to maintaining racial inequality through educational suppression." The documents Marcus had received continued to reveal deeper layers of discrimination. Standardized tests had been deliberately designed to limit black students' opportunities. Recommendation letters were manipulated. Scholarship applications mysteriously disappeared. Uncle Robert discovered additional connections. Some local politicians were directly linked to the educational discrimination network. "They thought they could control information," he explained. "But information has its own power now." Miss Jenkins provided crucial insider perspective. She revealed how some white educators had been secretly supporting black students, creating underground networks of support that the official system tried to suppress. "We had our own resistance," she explained. "Small acts of defiance, protecting test scores, hiding recommendation letters, ensuring some students' potential wasn't completely erased." The federal investigation began interviewing dozens of former students. Marcus's case became a catalyst for others to come forward, sharing similar experiences of educational discrimination. Superintendent Harris, now fully committed to exposing the truth, provided additional documentation. "There are people in the system who want change," he told Marcus, but they've been too afraid to speak up until now. A surprising ally emerged, a group of young white educators who had been quietly challenging the racist educational system from within. They began providing additional evidence, risking their own careers in the process. The legal strategy expanded. What began as Marcus's individual case was transforming into a potential class action lawsuit that could reshape educational policies across multiple southern states. "You're no longer just a student," Diane Robinson explained. "You've become a symbol of resistance." Local political pressure intensified. Some community leaders tried to discredit Marcus, but each attempt only drew more national attention to the case. The Henderson family home became a hub of activity. Researchers, lawyers, journalists all came to understand the deeper story behind Marcus's graduation moment. "They thought skipping my name would silence me," Marcus told a group of national journalists. "Instead, they've given me a microphone." Unexpected connections emerged. Some white administrators who had been part of the discriminatory system began to provide evidence, hoping to clear their own consciences before it was too late. Dr. Morganfield's research revealed a shocking pattern. The educational suppression wasn't just about racism. It was a calculated approach to maintaining economic and social control. "This goes beyond education," she explained during a press conference. "This is about systematically limiting an entire community's potential." Marcus understood now that his graduation was about far more than a personal achievement. It had become a turning point in the civil rights movement. The documents continued to tell a story of systematic oppression, but also of resistance, of hope, of the unbreakable spirit of a community fighting for justice. Something significant was coming. The truth was finding its way to the surface, no matter how hard some had tried to suppress it. The pressure reached a critical point exactly 1 month after Marcus's graduation. A hearing was scheduled in Washington, D.C., with Marcus at the center of a potential landmark investigation into educational discrimination. Diane Robinson prepared Marcus meticulously. "Every word matters," she advised. "You're not just speaking for yourself. You're speaking for generations of students who were silenced." The night before the hearing, threats escalated. A brick shattered the Henderson family's living room window, wrapped with a warning note. "Stay silent or else." James Henderson stood guard that night, his hunting rifle close. But Eleanor's response was different. "We'll fight with truth," she said, reinforcing the strategy of non-violent resistance that had defined their family's approach to civil rights. Uncle Robert brought additional protection. Local civil rights activists and veterans formed a protective circle around the Henderson home, ensuring Marcus's safety. The morning of the hearing arrived with intense media scrutiny. National television networks broadcast live as Marcus, accompanied by his family, entered the congressional building. Miss Jenkins and Superintendent Harris would serve as key witnesses. Congressman Robert Kennedy personally requested to be part of the hearing investigation, recognizing the potential national significance of Marcus's case. The documents Marcus had received became central evidence. Detailed records showed a systematic approach to limiting black students' educational opportunities, manipulated test scores, deliberately lost scholarship applications, coordinated efforts to suppress academic achievements. "This isn't about one student," Marcus testified, his voice steady and clear. "This is about a system designed to maintain racial inequality through educational suppression." Surprising allies emerged. Some white educators provided testimony supporting Marcus's claims, revealing internal resistance to the discriminatory system that had existed for years. Dr. Elizabeth Morganfield presented comprehensive research showing how educational discrimination was a calculated method of economic and social control. Her academic credentials gave additional weight to the testimony. The hearing room became a pressure cooker of tension. Southern politicians tried to discredit Marcus, but each attempt only highlighted the systemic racism they sought to defend. Superintendent Harris made a stunning revelation. "There are documents that go back decades," he testified. "Proof of a coordinated effort to limit educational opportunities for black students. The NAACP legal team had prepared extensively. Each piece of evidence was meticulously documented, creating an irrefutable case of systemic discrimination." Marcus's graduation moment, being skipped and then recognized, became a powerful symbol of resistance. News outlets across the country picked up the story, transforming a local incident into a national conversation about educational equality. Diane Robinson's legal strategy was brilliant. They weren't just presenting a case about one student, they were exposing an entire system of oppression. "My client's graduation is more than a personal achievement," she told the Congressional Committee. "It's a turning point in our nation's approach to educational equality." The hearing room felt electric. Generations of suppressed stories were finding their voice through Marcus's testimony. As Marcus spoke, he realized this was about far more than his individual experience. This was about challenging a system designed to limit potential, to control and suppress an entire community's dreams. The truth was finally being heard, and nothing would be the same after this day. The aftermath of the congressional hearing exploded across the national consciousness. Marcus Henderson became an overnight symbol of resistance, his graduation story transforming from a local incident to a pivotal moment in the civil rights movement. President Lyndon B. Johnson's administration began a comprehensive review of educational policies. Federal investigators descended on school districts across the southern states, armed with the documentation Marcus and the NAACP had uncovered. Threats against the Henderson family intensified. Anonymous phone calls, drive-by intimidations. The Ku Klux Klan made their presence known with subtle but terrifying demonstrations of power. But the community's response was equally powerful. Protection committees formed. Civil rights groups from across the country sent support. Universities began offering Marcus scholarship opportunities, recognizing him as more than just a student. He was now a national figure. Tougaloo College, where Marcus had been accepted, became a fortress of support. The historically black college turned his potential attendance into a statement of resistance and hope. Unexpected allies emerged. Some white educators who had been secretly supporting black students came forward, providing additional evidence of systematic discrimination. Miss Jenkins became a key witness, risking her own career to tell the truth. Superintendent Harris's testimony proved crucial. He revealed internal documents that showed how educational policies had been deliberately designed to limit black students' opportunities. His insider perspective provided unprecedented documentation of systemic racism. The legal battle expanded. What began as Marcus's individual case transformed into a potential class action lawsuit that could reshape educational policies across multiple states. Dr. Elizabeth Morganfield's research provided academic credibility to the claims. Her comprehensive study demonstrated how educational discrimination was a calculated method of economic and social control. Political pressure mounted. Southern politicians tried to discredit Marcus, but each attempt only drew more national attention to the case. The Henderson family became a symbol of resilience. James and Eleanor, who had worked multiple jobs to support their son's education, now found themselves at the center of a national movement. Media coverage was relentless. Time magazine featured Marcus on its cover. Television networks ran documentaries about his story. Newspapers across the country published in-depth investigations inspired by his case. Uncle Robert, drawing from his experiences in the military and civil rights movement, helped Marcus navigate the sudden national attention. "Stay true to yourself," he advised. "Don't let them turn you into just a symbol. You're a person first." A breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Additional documents surfaced, revealing a nationwide network of educational discrimination that extended far beyond Mississippi. Marcus began receiving letters from students across the country, black, white, from all backgrounds, sharing their own experiences of educational suppression. The hearing's impact extended beyond education. Civil rights leaders recognized this as a potential turning point in the broader struggle for equality. "They thought skipping my name would silence me," Marcus told a packed press conference. "Instead, they've given me a microphone that reaches across the entire country." Tougaloo College offered Marcus a full scholarship, but also something more, a platform to continue his advocacy. Professors began developing programs inspired by his case, focusing on educational equality and civil rights. The confrontation was reaching its final stages. Everything Marcus and his family had fought for was about to be tested in the most public way possible. The final battle was approaching, and nothing would stop the truth from emerging. The tension reached its breaking point on a humid summer morning. Marcus received a certified letter from the Department of Education, an official document that would change everything. The federal investigation had concluded. The findings were explosive. Systematic documentation proved that Marcus's experience was not an isolated incident. Hundreds of school districts had been deliberately suppressing black students' academic achievements, test scores manipulated, scholarship applications lost, recommendations deliberately withheld. Congressman Robert Kennedy personally called the Henderson home. "Your son's case has become a landmark civil rights investigation," he told James and Eleanor. The legal and political implications were massive. School districts across multiple southern states faced potential federal intervention. Funding would be reviewed. Administrative staff would be investigated. A new era of educational oversight was about to begin. Marcus discovered something unexpected in the documents. Some white educators had been secretly supporting black students for years, creating underground networks of resistance. Miss Jenkins was just one of many who had risked their careers to protect students' potential. Tougaloo College transformed Marcus's story into a comprehensive civil rights research program. Scholarships were established, documentation centers created. His graduation moment became a rallying point for educational equality. The Ku Klux Klan responded with increased intimidation. Another cross burned on the Henderson property. Anonymous threats arrived daily, but the community's response was stronger. Protection committees formed. Civil rights groups provided security. The community transformed threat into collective resistance. Uncle Robert brought additional information. Military and civil rights veteran networks were mobilizing. They recognized this as a pivotal moment in the ongoing struggle for equality. Superintendent Harris, now fully committed to exposing the truth, provided final pieces of evidence. "There are people in the system who want change," he told Marcus, "but they've been too afraid to speak up until now." Dr. Elizabeth Morganfield's research revealed the deeper psychological impact. Educational suppression wasn't just about limiting opportunities. It was a calculated method of maintaining social control. The documents Marcus had received became central to a nationwide conversation about systemic racism. What began as a personal story of being skipped during graduation had transformed into a movement. National media coverage intensified. Time magazine prepared a cover story. Television networks developed documentaries. Newspapers across the country investigated similar cases. Marcus understood now that his graduation was about far more than a personal achievement. It had become a turning point in the civil rights movement. The final confrontation was approaching. Years of suppressed truth were about to be revealed. "They thought skipping my name would silence me," Marcus told a group of civil rights leaders. "Instead, they've given me a platform to speak for generations." The Henderson home became a hub of activity. Researchers, lawyers, journalists all came to understand the deeper story behind Marcus's graduation moment. As summer approached, everything was about to change. The truth could no longer be contained. Marcus stood at the center of a storm that would reshape educational equality in America. The federal courthouse in Jackson, Mississippi, became ground zero for a transformation that would reshape the nation's understanding of educational equality. August 15, 1965, a date that would be remembered in civil rights history. Marcus Henderson walked into the courtroom, flanked by his family, Miss Jenkins, and NAACP legal team. The room buzzed with tension, national media cameras capturing every moment. Diane Robinson's opening statement was devastating. "This is not about one student being skipped during a graduation ceremony. This is about a systematic, calculated effort to suppress an entire generation's potential." The evidence was overwhelming. Hundreds of documents revealed a coordinated network of discrimination, deliberately manipulated standardized test scores, systematically lost scholarship applications, coordinated efforts to limit black students' academic opportunities, internal memos revealing racist policies designed to maintain educational inequality. Superintendent Harris became the most critical witness. His testimony exposed the internal mechanics of the discriminatory system, revealing how school administrators had worked to suppress black academic achievement for decades. "We didn't just limit opportunities," Harris testified. "We actively worked to crush the potential of an entire generation of black students." The courtroom gasped as internal documents were projected onto large screens. Cold, bureaucratic language revealing the calculated nature of educational suppression. Dr. Elizabeth Morganfield presented comprehensive research, demonstrating the long-term economic and social impacts of such systematic discrimination. Her academic credentials provided irrefutable scientific backing to the claims. Marcus sat quietly, the embodiment of the potential that had been systematically targeted. His presence was more powerful than any testimony. The federal judge, a veteran of World War II who had seen the cost of unchecked discrimination, listened intently. His expression revealed a growing anger at the evidence presented. Unexpected allies emerged. White educators who had secretly supported black students came forward, providing additional testimony about the underground resistance within the educational system. Ms. Jenkins testified about years of subtle resistance, protecting test scores, hiding recommendation letters, ensuring some students' potential wasn't completely erased. The climax came when Marcus took the stand. His testimony was not about anger, but about hope. He spoke about the power of education, about the potential of students who had been systematically marginalized. "They thought skipping my name would silence me," Marcus said, his voice steady and clear. "Instead, they've given me a voice that reaches across the entire country." The courtroom was silent, the weight of generations of suppressed potential hanging in the air. Diane Robinson's final argument was a masterpiece of legal strategy. "This is not just about punishment," she told the court. "This is about creating a path to true educational equality." As the judge prepared to deliver his ruling, the entire courtroom held its breath. Marcus looked at his parents, James and Eleanor Henderson, who had sacrificed everything to support their son's education. The ruling would be more than a legal decision. It would be a statement about the future of education in America. In that moment, Marcus understood that his graduation, that single moment when his name was skipped and then recognized, had become something far greater than a personal story. It was the moment that would help change a nation. 20 years later, Marcus Henderson stood on the campus of Tougaloo College, now a distinguished professor of educational policy and civil rights history. The campus library bore his name, a testament to the journey that had begun with a skipped name at a high school graduation. His latest book, Skipped: The Hidden History of Educational Resistance, had just been published. The documentary based on his story was set to air nationwide, promising to bring the hidden history of educational discrimination to a new generation. Students gathered around him after a lecture, eager to understand the history that had shaped their current educational opportunities. A young black student approached, holding a copy of his book. "Professor Henderson," she asked, "how did you survive all those threats? How did you keep fighting?" Marcus smiled, remembering. "My parents taught me that silence is the real enemy. Speaking truth, no matter the cost. That's how we create change." The legal victory had been transformative. The federal court's ruling had led to comprehensive review of educational policies across southern states, mandatory diversity training for school administrators, increased federal oversight of school district practices, scholarship programs designed to support historically marginalized students. Miss Jenkins, now in her 80s, remained a close friend. She had continued her work, helping to dismantle racist educational practices from within the system. Superintendent Harris had become an unexpected ally in educational reform, spending his later years working to correct the very system he once helped maintain. The Henderson family's legacy extended beyond Marcus. His younger siblings had become educators, lawyers, civil rights advocates, each carrying forward the mission of creating educational equality. The diploma they tried to hide, Marcus often told his students, became a key that opened doors for generations. Footage from his original graduation played during the documentary premiere. The moment of being skipped, then recognized, now a powerful symbol of resistance and hope. Eleanor and James Henderson, though no longer living, had lived to see their son's impact. Their sacrifices, their belief in education as a path to liberation, had been vindicated. The documentary revealed the complex network of resistance, white and black educators who had worked secretly to support students, creating underground pathways to opportunity. Marcus's work continued. The Edward Harrington Educational Equity Foundation, named after the documents that first revealed the systemic discrimination, provided scholarships and support for students facing similar challenges. "Education is the most powerful weapon for change," Marcus would tell his students, echoing the lessons learned from his own journey. The final scenes of the documentary showed Marcus returning to his hometown of Greenwood. The landscape had changed, but the memories remained powerful. He visited the high school where he had been skipped during graduation. Now integrated with a diverse student body, it stood as a testament to the changes brought about by resistance and truth-telling. As the documentary concluded, Marcus's message was clear. One moment of recognition can change everything. One voice, raised in truth, can transform a system. The skipped name had become a rallying cry for educational justice. During graduation, my name was skipped, until the principal handed me a hidden diploma, is more than just a story. It's a reminder that every voice matters, that resistance can take many forms, and that education is the most powerful tool for creating meaningful social change. This journey of Marcus Henderson challenges us to ask, what stories are still waiting to be told? How can we continue to fight for educational equality? What hidden histories exist in our own communities? Share this story, discuss it. Use it as a catalyst for conversations about justice, education, and the ongoing struggle for true equality. Subscribe to continue exploring stories of resistance, hope, and transformation. The most powerful change begins with a single voice, a single moment of recognition. Are you ready to be that voice?